Undeterred by rejection from the Air Force because of his phenomenally poor eyesight, it's true, Jar built his own high-fidelity fighter jet simulator. After acquiring a real Hornet windshield in 2003, Jar made the obvious decision to build a full-size F-18 cockpit in his garage. I mean, look at the skilled workmanship, just tremendous. 20 years later, he's still hard at work on his dream of being the best fighter pilot the world has ever seen. Believe me. Let's check in on Jar and see what he's up to today.
Hey everyone, we are the owners of the Thrustmaster TPR pedals. I just purchased these, and the reason I did is because while I was in America, I was aboard the USS Midway and they had an A7 Corsair cockpit, and I was able to sit in that, and when I was operating the rudder pedals, I noticed that they were pretty much the exact same geometry as the Thrustmaster TPRs. They're like a pendular design. So I'll put a clip up of me in the cockpit pushing on the rudder pedals of the A7. They are swung from the top on cranks, and they move in a very, very similar fashion to the Thrustmaster TPRs. So I'd put this off for a long time because these are 540 millimeters wide, and when I built my cockpit, I only built it 520 millimeters wide. So I've got to pull this whole thing apart and make it wider. So it's the only reason I hadn't bought these till now. And like I said, sitting in the A7 and watching the pedals move, it kind of, made my mind up for me. So yeah, I don't know, I'm gonna try and do a time lapse or something. I haven't pulled this apart for a few years now, so I'm not looking forward to it. And let's get it done. The windscreen is off. So this is a real F-18 windscreen. It weighs a ton, and it's got this wooden glare shield dash thing. What do you call it? Combing, and the HUD's half hanging off. So I managed to lift that off on my own. The forward section here, as I said, it's over 20 years old. I built this a long time ago. All right, so now I think we can separate this. So this should just pull forward. Those brackets are disconnected. All right, so if we just give this a yank. Oh, there we go. Okay. And before we go too much further, just to confirm, so ladies and gentlemen, I did make it too narrow, so you can see the Thrustmaster pedals don't fit. It's by a good couple of centimeters, so that's better than if it was only by a tiny bit. So yeah, I definitely do need to make this wider. So all this work hasn't been for nothing so far. All right, we have it outside now. I'm gonna pull these two walls off and widen it and put them back on. Looks like they're held on with nails. So I don't know why I did that, but hopefully it comes apart easy. Okay, much gnashing of teeth later. The panels are back on, and I've widened the sidewalls considerably. So we're just trying to make sure this is basically symmetrical. So all I'm doing is off the Moser. So if I take a measurement off the flat edge of the Moser, we get about that much gap. And then I mean, it's a home cockpit, yeah. So it's roughly correct. Probably just needs a little twist. Maybe this side in a bit. So now we'll screw it in. Okay, so I'm pretty sure these screws aren't, oh, that one's locked in. This one is turning, but anyway, that might be enough just for a position check. So let's jump in and see how it feels. So what I think I'm worried about is that I can't get them close enough because of the sidewalls, but we will soon see. So there's the pedals. There's my feet. All right, first test. Brakes, I can do the brakes easy. It's a nice comfortable position to rest in. My legs are bent. Now let's see if I can get full deflection. Oh, easily. And then how close are they coming? See, perfect. And just for a bit of a dry run, I've temporarily screwed the front in, and you can see from that bracket there's a gap both sides. I think it looks pretty even. So I might make a filler just out of something plasticky or rubber just to fill that gap, and yeah, just so it doesn't look so rough. And looks like we've got plenty of room on the pedals. So let's do a test to make sure we do. That side's clear. That side's clear. Yeah, wow. So yeah, these are obviously very nice rudder pedals, and I really did want to get them, but I knew that this would be a lot of work, and it's taken me a few hours, and I'm still not finished. And yeah, but I'm really happy. They feel a lot nicer than the Cytex, obviously, and they yeah, they look just like the A7 pedals moving. Yeah, and I'm really impressed with how comfortable that is. I was worried because I tend to just sort of sit with my feet resting on them when we're flying. And yeah, they feel really comfortable. My toes aren't, I don't have to hold my toes off the brakes. So I did, there's a lot of adjustment. So I wanted to have as large a distance on the brakes as I could. And, but I didn't want my toes to be sort of pressing on them. But no, that's not, it's nicely resting in the arch of my foot. And I'm really happy. Okay, it's the next day because I wasn't happy about the smaller screws that I had, so I went and bought these from the hardware store. These are a thicker, heavier screw, and I've ran them through the holes, and so now we're going to hopefully bolt this down successfully. So we'll move it into position, which I've marked on the floor with a pen. So we'll just line up holes and screw it in. All right, it's solidly bolted in now. It's not going anywhere. This is one last look. That's the box that I built for the Moser AB9 base. It's screwed down with these side plates, but yeah, there's a lot of trial and error in getting the right height and angle, and that box screws internally into that. And this is the, I believe it's a NACE's ejection seat handle I got off eBay years ago. It was advertised as being from an F14, but who knows. And someone asked about the back of it. The back of it has this cover, which is covered in nylon, but I think it might be plastic or metal. Something solid, but that's to stop you snagging it from this side, so that's why it's got rear on there. So yeah, this is the handle that you would pull to eject from a Tomcat, I believe. And then to plug this into the PC, obviously you've got your USB port there, which is not in focus, there we go. And then that goes in there. And then the other end is just your classic USB-A type. Okay, so the Moser power supply is just sitting there and the cord is running to here. So let's see if we can work out where it goes. So I'm glad I'm doing this now because it goes into this DC input here and it clicks in. Just do a little check, but yeah, that feels good. And then this is the Moser USB plug into there. Okay. And then these other connections are, I think if you get different Moser things like the throttle and the rudder pedals, which I haven't looked into, but, and then this is obviously the power button. So because I turn power off to the whole pit, each time I turn power back on, turn the computer on to do some flight sim stuff, I normally hit that button. But it's good because when it's been depowered, it's completely floppy. So yeah, then when you press that button, it does its self-test and puts the profile on. All right, we've put the monitor on to see if we can put it together now. It was a bit confusing. So this is, I had a few different heights. So that's where I've put it. So we'll see if that works. And I've got Falcon keeping me company. He's doing a Metal Gear Solid playthrough. So I'm just checking that out. So that's pretty cool. Okay, monitor's off again. It's just these two screws. But there's lots of holes in that bracket, so it's a bit confusing. Anyway, let's go. Front's going back in. Let's hope we don't have to pull this apart for many, many years again. So we've got to get past the pedals and then line up with this piece of wood. Seems to be going well. I haven't hit any snags.
I gotta find some TNT or something to throw that high.
All right, looks like we've got to get there. Just a last minute check for cables. Pull it over a little bit. Alright, I'm going to call that home. Okay. 2 screws are in that hold the monitor on. And then we're up to, we'll put these bolts in. I've managed to make quite a few mods to make it simpler and easier to do things. So unfortunately I had to cut this front panel because this was always a solid Wolfpack logo, but it wasn't very wise because it was a nightmare to do any work in here with that. So now putting these screws in is super simple. So I can just reach in this hole and line this up. Done a bit of wire cleanup. So, you know, sometimes you jump in and you catch your foot on a cable. So hopefully now everything is kind of in order. There's no tension on everything. That's the power for the monitor and that's the power for the Moser AB9. And all the cables come down through here and into the little avionics bay. And I've actually labeled what's what. So now I actually have an idea of what's going where. So that's, these are just cockpit lights. So they're just powered USB lights left and right. That's the PTO panel, the wind wing. That's my throttle. I'm gonna stick the track IR camera into that one. And yeah, obviously top one's AB9 TPR pedals, the new one we just added, and then the MFD. Now the screen for the MFD actually goes through this one. This is the Lilliput display, and it runs out through there because it gets its image from that MacBook. So that's not the coolest way to do things. It's not a live feed, but what it does mean is that whenever the MacBook is on, the HSI is on. So I kind of like that, you know, it's, once you put the VR headset on, I don't really use this stuff. So it's cool to be able to turn the cockpit on and have that MFD fully populated. Anyway, next step is to break my back and lift the canopy and windscreen, or the windscreen back on. And obviously this thing is a bit heavy, so let's compress some vertebrae. Oh. So I've got a scale here and I'm just going to weigh myself now that I'm holding this. So I went from 76 to 106. So that can't be right, surely. Surely this is not 30 kilos. Anyway, how am I going to get this on? Oh. This might be easy. Mental note, just take these off, it's one screw. So I heard some graunchy noises, so I think everything's okay. This seems a little bit wobbly, but I think it's good. So yeah, everything's looking good, everything works. Everything's okay. So yeah, now we're just doing up these screws on these brackets. And that holds the windscreen to the rails. Okay, it's day 3, but everything is back together and looking fantastic. So yeah, there's been a lot of tweaks and improvements made. All the wiring now is fully set up so that it doesn't catch on my feet at all. It's actually quite neat up in there. Let's turn this light on and then we can get a look at the pedals. Okay, so here we are in DCS, and this is the very first time I am flying with the TPRs. So we can see there I've assigned the axes and they're moving correctly. See, that's also moving the nose steering. So we will jump into the cockpit and the brakes are working. Now I haven't done anything. I normally on my old Cytec pedals would have to put in some dead zones and some curves. So we're gonna do this completely au naturel. So with my feet on the pedals, taxiing forward, I'm not noticing any drift and I'm not noticing any brakes. So if I touch the brakes, brakes come on. So I don't, yeah, I might go in and put a dead zone, but to me it looks like it's doing pretty good. Let's kick a bit of nose wheel steering. Okay, so let's go get airborne. So in the Hornet, I think this is probably where I use mostly the rudders. And yeah, they feel a lot different to the side decks. The side decks were quite noticeably rough and draggy, whereas these things just feel very, very smooth. I do notice that some people put damper mods on, and yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I would need that. I kind of like the very positive return to center that they seem to have. And we'll roll out on the runway here, and we'll do a last minute test of the brakes. So this is the right brake on its own. What's that doing? Anything? Doesn't seem to be slowing down much, does it? Let's have a look at the brake axes and just make sure that we have full deflections. Apologies, I've got 4K resolution turned on and I haven't adjusted this. So axes commands, and we'll go to wheel brake left, axis tune. So it looks like it's getting full deflection, but what I'll do, I'm just going to drag saturation X to 90. It seems to be rolling a lot easier than it was. Yeah, that's better. This is a very heavy jet. There's a lot of weapons on these jets. These are our Bagram mission ones. So yeah, so what I'm going to do is we'll send her on the runway, and I haven't put anything on the rudder pedals as far as adjustment goes. So I think I might reduce that little saturation X that I put on the brakes, but I like making sure that the brakes aren't dragging and things like that. All right, so there we go. That looks pretty central to me. So I'm going to just keep my feet on the brakes, and we'll take off. Looks like it wanted a little bit. I don't know if that's the brakes or the rudders, or just looks like it wants to wander to the right a little bit, but no, it's holding straight now. Holding straight. I mean, that looks pretty good. All right, we're airborne. Gears coming up. Flaps to auto. Ooh, geez, they feel nice. Yeah, they feel a lot nicer than the side decks. Well, let's go air to ground. Master arm on, and we'll select the gun. Now we are very heavy, so I'm probably going to crash into the ground. But let's practice shooting something with the gun and see how easy it is to walk the rounds on. I'll zoom in a bit. And let's aim for something down here. All right, you can see the minute adjustments I'm doing with the, yeah, that's a lot better. I'm not saying I'm a good shot now, but if I want to put a bit of right rudder in, yeah, that feels really good. That feels really, really good. All right, well, let's maybe jump in an F-14. All right, so taxiing in the F-14. Oh, nose wheel steering. I really like that you can just latch nose wheel steering on the Tomcat and it stays on. You don't have to hold the button. Yeah, so this feels really good. So the only thing I had to do the F-14 for some reason, and it could just be me specific, but I had to invert the toe brake axis, but now it looks like they're all good. And I did add saturation X. I did a 95 just to give it a little bit of buffer at each end. And I'm not sure if I needed to do that, but all right, taxiing out. We'll get airborne in the Tomcat and kick the rudders in a little bit. Yeah, if you do have a dampener mod on the rudders, let me know, because I'd be interested to hear how it feels. But I kind of like that it centers so easily and you can just relax your legs and it's all centered up. All right, let's see if we get the same drift we got in the Hornet. So I think I'm centered up. Let's just test the brakes. Yeah, brakes look good. Okay, let's light it up. I mean, that looks like it's holding a pretty good heading. If I do a little push, There's not much there. This was tearing off. All right, let's go flying. Yeah, it feels great. It feels a lot more like a real aircraft pushing on these rudder pedals. I've got the resistance set to max, and yeah, to throw in a heap of rudder feels really, really cool. Well, I'm in heaven. These public pedals are just fantastic. So I think I can safely say that was a great purchase.